Would you believe that a young woman could call the police multiple times, begging for help, saying she feared for her life, and still end up dead just hours later? Can you imagine being so afraid, so desperate that you reach out again and again, only to be ignored until it's too late? This isn't fiction. This is the real story of Lauren McCluskey, a 21-year-old honors student, a standout track athlete, a daughter who texted her mom every single day. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't hiding something. She was just trying to protect herself from a man who wasn't who he said he was. And on October 22, 2018, in Salt Lake City, Utah, she made one last call for help. That night, Lauren told campus police that someone was pretending to be her ex-boyfriend, harassing her, stalking her, using fake numbers. She was scared. She said she was being followed. She begged them to come quickly. They didn't. Minutes later, Lauren was dead, shot and killed outside her dorm by the man she feared most. And what happened afterward would spark national outrage. Because Lauren didn't just fall through the cracks. She was actively reaching out. And no one came. This is more than a campus tragedy. It's a story of ignored red flags, systemic failure, and a young life taken too soon. But it's also a story of questions. Questions that still haven't been fully answered. Why didn't police act? Why wasn't she believed? And how many other Laurens are out there calling for help and being met with silence? This is the final call, Lauren McCluskey's plea for help. Lauren Jennifer McCluskey was not a troublemaker. She wasn't reckless. She didn't do drugs. She wasn't sneaking out or hiding secrets. She was precise. She was predictable. She was responsible. Born in 1997 to Jill and Matt McCluskey in Pullman, Washington, Lauren grew up with love, structure, and high expectations. Her father was a university professor. Her mother, a school counselor. She was a champion high jumper, a gifted student, and a kind-hearted soul. By all accounts, someone who always followed the rules. In 2018, she was in her senior year at the University of Utah, majoring in communication. Her future looked bright. Her days were scheduled down to the minute, training, classes, and check-ins with her mom, who she texted faithfully every evening. Then, in September 2018, she met someone. His name was Melvin Rowland. At least that's what he said. They met off campus through a dating app. He told her he was 28 and worked in IT. He was polite, charming, attentive. Lauren, cautious as always, even Googled him, but the name came up clean. So she let her guard down. They dated casually. It lasted about a month. Until one day, her friends grew suspicious. Something about him didn't sit right. They pressured Lauren to dig deeper. So she did. What she found would shatter everything. His real name wasn't Melvin Rowland. He was actually 37 years old, a registered sex offender, with a long criminal record and a past that should have raised every alarm. Lauren ended things immediately. She was firm. She cut him off. But Melvin didn't go away. He began to harass her, sending messages from fake numbers, pretending to be others, manipulating and threatening her. So Lauren did what any responsible person would do. She told the police. She begged them to help. And they did nothing. After discovering Melvin Rowland's real identity, Lauren went to campus police. She reported the threats, the fake texts, the phone calls, the manipulation. She told them he was a registered sex offender. She told them she feared for her safety. She showed them screenshots, call logs, his criminal history. And still, no arrest, no protective order, no active surveillance, not even a police escort. Instead, the University of Utah police told Lauren to stop responding to his messages. They didn't track him down. They didn't escalate the case. They didn't notify the parole board. They didn't coordinate with Salt Lake City police. They did nothing. From October 10th to October 22nd, Lauren contacted police over 20 times, by phone, email, and in person. 20 times. Her mother, Jill, even got involved, calling the department herself, worried that her daughter wasn't being taken seriously. Still, the response was passive, dismissive. One officer even joked with a dispatcher about the case, saying, "We don't have enough to go on." But Melvin Rowland wasn't joking. He was hunting. He had returned to campus multiple times. He'd used burner phones to pretend he was someone else. He even got friends to help him retrieve items from Lauren under false pretenses. And then came October 22, 2018. That night, Lauren made her final call to campus police. She said someone was impersonating her ex. She was being followed. She felt unsafe. Once again, they didn't respond in time. Later that evening, Melvin Rowland confronted Lauren in a parking lot near her dorm. He dragged her into the back seat of a car, shot her 7 times and left her body behind. By the time police connected the dots, she was already gone. Rowland fled the scene. He was later spotted by police, but before he could be arrested, he killed himself inside a church in downtown Salt Lake City. No trial, no justice, no answers. Just a cold, heart-stopping silence, where help should have been. Would you believe that even after Lauren's murder, officials insisted procedures had been followed, as if checklists mattered more than a life? Imagine losing your child, then hearing the very people who failed her defend their inaction as by the book? Because that's what happened. After Lauren's death, the University of Utah launched an internal review. The public demanded answers. The McCluskey family demanded accountability. And what emerged from the investigation wasn't just disturbing, it was enraging. The university's police department had multiple opportunities to act, each more critical than the last. They knew Rowland was a paroled sex offender. They knew Lauren was being targeted and stalked. They had direct evidence, from Lauren's own emails and messages. Yet time and again they failed to run a background check on Rowland after the first report, flag the severity of a parolee harassing a student, coordinate with Salt Lake City PD, who had broader jurisdiction, contact adult probation and parole, which could have revoked Rowland's freedom, inform campus safety so patrols could increase around Lauren. They didn't even share her reports with university leadership until after her murder. In other words, no urgency, no prioritization, no follow-through, and perhaps most painfully, no belief. Despite Lauren's credibility, composure, and constant documentation, she was treated like someone who was overreacting. Would it have been different if she were older? If she had a louder voice? If she'd broken down crying instead of calmly pleading? Her death was not caused by some fluke. It was a slow-motion failure. A chain reaction of negligence that began the moment she walked into that police station. Even more shocking? The university's original post-mortem conclusion was that the tragedy could not have been prevented. Only after overwhelming public backlash did they admit wrongdoing. An independent investigation later found that campus police lacked training, failed to recognize the severity, and did not act on key opportunities. They apologized. But apologies don't resurrect lives. They don't erase those 20 calls. They don't undo that final night. Lauren did everything right, and the system still failed her. Would you believe the man who killed Lauren had been released early from prison, after multiple sex offenses, and was allowed to vanish into society with barely any oversight? Can you imagine a justice system that warns, monitors, tracks, and then forgets? Until someone dies. Melvin Rowland wasn't some ghost. He wasn't a mystery man. He was a known predator, with convictions for enticing a minor, attempted forcible sex abuse, and failure to register as a sex offender. His prison record painted a chilling picture. He had multiple parole violations. He'd used fake identities before. He manipulated women. He lied without hesitation. He was flagged as a potential risk. But somehow he kept slipping through the cracks. When Lauren reported him, no one rechecked his parole status. No one reached out to adult probation and parole. No one flagged his presence on a college campus. In fact, one of the most disturbing hidden details came out during later investigations. Rowland had a long pattern of dating women under false names and ghosting them when exposed. He was a serial manipulator, hiding behind apps, using burner phones, and preying on younger women who didn't know his past. And the people who should have been tracking him? didn't even know he'd been reported. That gap between campus police, parole officers, and city law enforcement cost Lauren her life. Even more chilling? Lauren wasn't the only woman Roland was harassing. At least one other woman came forward after Lauren's death, saying she too had met Roland through a dating app and had been harassed when she tried to break it off. And that bowl of warning signs kept spilling over. Campus security cameras caught Roland on university grounds multiple times before the murder. Lauren's own mother, Jill, had emailed campus police with detailed concerns. Officers joked about the case on recorded phone calls, minimizing the threat. This wasn't a one-off mistake. This was a system-wide collapse. And Lauren? She was caught in the middle. A smart, cautious, rule-following woman trying to escape a lie, only to become a victim of everyone else's silence. When the system breaks, who pays the price? It took a grieving mother, a national media storm, and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit to finally force accountability from a university that ignored every warning. Can you imagine having to relive your daughter's murder again and again, on the news, in courtrooms, on paper, just to make sure no one else suffers the same fate? Lauren's death wasn't just a tragedy. It became a national reckoning. People across the U.S., parents, students, educators, lawmakers, were stunned. How could this happen at a major public university? Why weren't there safeguards? Why didn't anyone step in? Lauren's mother, Jill McCluskey, refused to let the silence stand. She and her husband filed a $56 million wrongful death lawsuit against the University of Utah. Not for money, not for revenge, but for change. Because someone had to make sure this never happened again. The university's initial response? Denial. Defensiveness. Officials claimed nothing could have prevented Lauren's death. They insisted protocols were followed. But as public outrage grew and evidence mounted, they were forced to confront reality. Eventually, the university admitted fault. They acknowledged serious lapses in how the case was handled. They settled with the McCluskey's for $13.5 million. But the bigger impact came outside the courtroom. Policies changed. Campus police were retrained with a new focus on stalking, domestic violence, and sexual assault. Procedures for handling parolees and criminal background checks were updated. The university launched the Lauren McCluskey Foundation, created by Jill and Matt to improve campus safety nationwide. The foundation now funds education, research, and advocacy for better laws and stronger responses to dating violence and stalking on college campuses. Lauren's story was even featured in national documentaries and news specials, shining a light on the hidden epidemic of ignored warning signs in campus environments. But despite the progress, the pain never left. Her parents live every day with the knowledge that their daughter did everything right and still died. And that's the hardest truth of all. Lauren wasn't careless. She wasn't naive. She trusted the system. And that system let her down. Lauren's killer never stood trial, not because of some legal loophole, but because no one got to him in time. Imagine what might have changed if just one officer had listened, one phone call had been returned, one warning had been taken seriously. Because Lauren McCluskey did not die in silence. She spoke up. She fought back. She gave names, proof, timelines, and warnings. She reached out again and again for help, for protection, for justice. But the system was on mute. And in that silence, a predator moved freely. And a bright, disciplined, beautiful soul was taken. Her story is more than a case file. It's a reflection of every campus that's underprepared, of every authority figure who thinks stalking isn't serious, of every woman who's told she's overreacting, and of every institution that values image over intervention. Lauren McCluskey should be alive today. Her final call should have been the beginning of safety, not the countdown to her death. So the next time someone says, "She didn't scream loud enough," "She didn't act fast enough," "She didn't do enough," remember, Lauren did everything right. And she still died alone in a parking lot, waiting for help that never came. Let her story be more than a tragedy. Let it be a wake-up call. Let it be a demand. Let it be a reminder that behind every ignored report, every missed phone call, every delayed decision, is a life. And sometimes it's the last voice you'll ever hear. Who else will have to die before we listen the first time? If Lauren's story moved you, if you believe silence should never be a death sentence, leave a comment, share her name, ask the hard questions, because someone out there is calling for help right now, and they don't have time to wait. This was The Final Call, Lauren McCluskey's plea for help.